I've done speaking all over the world and sharing my experience with foster care, with mental health conditions, and now being a person in recovery from alcohol. That has been so freeing. And the one part of my story that I never shared was experiencing sexual trauma. And now that STAR has allowed that to happen, I feel like I've already begun to heal in that area even more than what therapy was able to offer. Hi, I'm Lacy. I'm an advocate and speaker and consultant for nonprofits and social impact organizations. I got started in advocacy as a foster youth, and I have been doing advocacy ever since. Realized that there was a whole other youth advocate group in the mental health world. So I've been doing advocacy around mental health, foster care, and recovery since I was 18. I work a lot with young people and organizations and systems that serve them. So I do a lot of work through the National Technical Assistance Centers and help with states who get grants to serve youth and young adults. And so I was one of the first youth consultants with the National Resource Center for Youth Development and got to help go around developing youth advisory boards in every state that would inform the governor and the state system on how to make system improvements to better serve young people. And so that requires a lot of work both with young people to teach them leadership skills and advocacy skills and strategic sharing, as well as working with the adults on really how to engage youth appropriately and where to include their voice at the systems level and policy level, as well as indirect services. I experienced a lot of sexual abuse as a child from 3 different men, one of them being my father. And that really did something to the core of my soul that changed me forever. I went through my teenage years just trying to shove it to the side, pretend like it never happened, and hoping that eventually it would just go away and I wouldn't have to deal with it ever again. I thought maybe if I hid it, then it really would disappear. What I found though is that the more I shoved it away, the worse the symptoms got. So I experienced flashbacks, severe depression. I still have PTSD. And for me in college, really started self-medicating with alcohol. I was also a fighter, an MMA fighter, which on one hand was really, I think, a way to express all of the anger that I had built up over the years, but on the other hand was something that was so empowering. That, even though fighting may not necessarily be a great thing in some forums, it really gave me a huge sense of empowerment for myself. So I thought that because of what I had gone through, that I would be broken forever. I didn't know that there was an option to heal from everything that I had been through. That scar in my soul, I thought, would never let me be a normal person, would never let me have a normal relationship. And there were several times as an adult in my adult life that things were so bad that I didn't want to live anymore. It's not that I wanted to die, but I didn't know how to live with that level of emotional pain that I was going through. Once I finally got to that point where I had made a decision on how I was going to end my life, something snapped inside of me and said, "What are you doing? You don't want to do this. This isn't you." And finally, I started seeking mental health help. The life-saving thing for me through this journey has been that I have been connected to advocacy. And for me, it was incredibly healing to be able to share my story about the trauma of growing up in a really complex, traumatic environment. My mother was in and out of prison most of my life, and my father was an active alcoholic and was one of the main perpetrators of my sexual trauma as a child. When I finally learned that what I was feeling about myself and that I was feeling so broken that I would never be able to be okay. I was at a conference advocating for foster youth, and I heard Bruce Perry speaking about trauma and what it does to a person, what behaviors come up after experiencing trauma. And for me, that was the absolute moment of enlightenment, that I knew what trauma was, that I knew that everything I was experiencing had a name, and that there was something that could be done about it. And that was the biggest light bulb that could have gone off for me, is even being aware that what I was going through was called trauma. And I finally started seeking mental health help. I went to EMDR, I went to other trauma therapies, I went to talk therapy. I mean, I did as much therapy as I could from 25 to, 30 or so. And, it helped. It helped along the way, but I was still self-medicating. I experienced a lot of flashbacks as an adult. Sometimes I could see them coming, sometimes they would come out of nowhere. Public places, at an airport, at the state capitol, where I was interning. And then the worst was probably, an entire month span where I would wake up and need to nurse my daughter when she was first born, and I was having flashbacks every single night for an entire month. And that was just awful. I have gone through, at that point, 18 years of mental health therapy, and it wasn't until I started addressing my drinking issues that my mental health issues started getting better. And for me, that's been the best gift of all, in being able to have healing, have hope, and be there for my daughter, and be the mother that I didn't have as a child. And I guess that's the gift of what healing from trauma and recovery has given me. In AA, there's a saying that you're only as sick as your secrets. And so for me, being able to share my whole story, not just the foster care, the mental health pieces, but everything that I've been through, and the trauma and the sexual trauma that I experienced, for me, that's my effort in allowing those secrets to come out and find some healing. There were times in my life where I did not feel peace or happiness for years on end. And I would see other people and think, gosh, I'm never going to be able to have that because I'm just not like them. But what I've found is that in sharing my story, in finding others who have had similar experience, and being able to hear the hope that they've offered, now I do feel peace. Not all day, every day, and not every day, but at least at some point on most days, I'm able to feel peace. And I'll never be able to go back and feel unviolated again. But I can feel peace. And I guess that's what my message is for anybody out there who is still suffering, whether it happened yesterday or it happened as a child and it's been 30 years now. My message is that, it's totally possible. It's possible to feel happy again. And it's possible to feel peace again, even though we still carry what happened to us, and that never goes away. Once I accepted that it happened, I could do something with it. And I just want people out there to know that just because you go through something so terrible, it doesn't have to stay that way. There is a path to recovery from trauma. There is a path to happiness and peacefulness and hope. And so that's what I hope that you'll get from my message today.